if you are speaking of like super chats, yada yada, as we've said, the full interview with Professor Mohan Dutter is on Patreon right now, patreon.com/Big Hairy News. It's about 25 minutes, and we made a decision probably a year ago that for those big long interviews, we probably put them in their full on Patreon. They might go in their full to YouTube, but if you are a patron, you can see it right there. If you're not a patron, you can become one, and you can see it right there. I have also released a couple of clips on my Twitter feed. There's a really important clip here. It's 5 minutes long because we're about to talk about this slogan, this call. It's actually a prayer, Jai Shri Ram, that David Seymour has used. And what I wanted to know, which you won't hear in the clip that I'm about to show you, but it is on my Twitter feed, is has that prayer been co-opted by this group? You know how USA has been co-opted by a group of Americans, and whilst chanting USA isn't in and of itself a political statement, when you put context to it, we know who you are and why you're using it. So I asked him a question about the context and had it been co-opted or was it always there? That's on Twitter. But Shree, if you're good for it, what we'll do right now is we're going to play, this is 2 parts of the 25-minute conversation I had with Professor Dutter. I'm playing the first part of it, which actually does the setup in case you're not aware of the story we're talking about, and then about the last 10 minutes. Because in the last 10 minutes, we really delve deep down into what does this say? It's a bit like the conversation around Israel and Gaza and those 6 servicemen. What does David Seymour, using this saying, convey to the rest of the world? What does it convey to the alt-right fascist political spectre in India? And these are terms that Professor Dutter brings up, not my terms necessarily. And what does it convey to Indian Muslims living in New Zealand who are still on the edge after the Christchurch massacre, right? Because remember, Mr. Seymour was very, very, very keen for us to be extremely offended by From the River to the Sea. Now, From the River to the Sea is interpreted by different people to mean different things, but one thing can be said, it is however you interpret it, it is a hypothetical future of something that could possibly happen. Whereas this saying, and you'll hear the professor talking about it, Jai Shri Ram, is a slogan, a prayer, a saying that's used today in the name of violence. And historically, it's been used in association with violence. So there's no sort of, well, this is what they mean in a multiverse. This is used today as a violent call to action. From the river to the sea is some kind of ethereal, this is what they want to do in the future, but they're not doing it now. Whereas this is actually being used in violent context at the moment. So I know I talk about it in this clip, I won't set it up too much more, but you know, even if we were being generous and saying that Mr. Seymour was being used as a useful idiot, I think he needs to address this because this has portrayed New Zealand, much like the sending of the 6 service people, in a certain light to a certain sector of the world that needs to be sorted out. Now, that's all I've got for a very long intro, Chewy. Is there anything you want to say before we fire it off? It's about 10 minutes.
No, go for it.
All right, team, we will play this for you, and so you can see what's going on, so you know what's happening, and we will be back shortly to catch up with you at the end of this conversation with myself from this afternoon and Professor Mohan Dutter. So this is at the event over the weekend at Eden Park in Auckland, and this is what he said. It's only, I think it might be 3 words, 2 or 3 words. It sounds like 2 words, it might be 3 words, and he says, Jai Shri Ram. Jai Shri Ram. Just listen to him saying it first of all.
Jai Shri Ram to the entire Bharat, and what a wonderful celebration of a monument that will last 1,000 years.
So there we go. The celebration was the consecration of a temple in India. That in of itself is controversial because the temple is on the site of a mosque, a former mosque. You'll have to correct me on these because I'm just getting the gist of it. And there's a lot of controversy even over the building of that temple on that site. If I'm correct in that very synopsized explanation, let's start off with Jai Shri Ram and let's learn from you what that means and what Mr. Seymour has actually said. And also, a bit like we talked about last night, what this actually says to a community about the New Zealand government now that he has said this. Sir.
Thank you so much, Pat. And that's an excellent summary. So, to explain what the slogan Jai Shri Ram means and its connotation, we have to look a little bit at Hindutva, the far right, almost fascist, cultural nationalist movement that really took form and gained momentum in India in the mid 1980s, and that is organized around transforming India as a Hindu nation or Hindu Rashtra based upon a monolithic Hindu jati or a Hindu race and a monolithic Hindu culture or Sanskriti. Now, Hindutva as a movement grew and drew its inspiration in the 1930s from the Nazi movements. And it
Right.
is organized around the goal of constructing India as a Hindu nation or Hindu Rashtra. So the slogan then, Jai Shri Ram, is an organizing slogan of Hindutva that is established around initially this process of the destruction of the Babri Masjid. So the VHP or the Visual Hindu Parishad that has been classified as a militant organization in multiple registers, organized the entire nation around the destruction of the mosque. And the way it organized is through hate speeches that were distributed through cassettes and then played on loudspeakers. This is the 1980s, early 1990s we are talking about, and through the chanting of the Jai Shri Ram slogan taken out as processions across the country in what would be called the Ratha Yatra, which ultimately led to the destruction of the mosque. Subsequently, then, what we saw was a number of riots across India that saw a number of people dead, and a large proportion of them Muslims. And that slogan has been deployed for acts of violence, including in communal riots being chanted by Hindutva, in attacks on mosques. So you will see Hindutva processions chanting Jai Shri Ram as they attack mosques, in lynchings. Now, since the arrival of Narendra Modi, the current prime minister, into power, Hindutva has been legitimized. And what that has meant is that this kind of violence has become an everyday feature in across India. So when lynchings have been carried out targeting Muslims, the slogan Jai Shri Ram is chanted, and often then the Muslim person that is targeted is asked to chant that slogan as they are being lynched.
Now, I just want to bring it right back to where we started from as well, because this is an important part for us as New Zealanders to understand in our political sphere. We asked, what does Mr. Seymour using this statement say to that community? Does it say to them the New Zealand government supports your movement, or what does it say to them? But also, we talked about from the river to the sea. David Seymour himself, this is a tweet, if people are watching, can see that David Seymour says this from a tweet. I'm quoting him word for word. From the river to the sea appears in Hamas 27 constitution. Some people believe it means no Israel and even no Jewish people. UK Labour suspended an MP for using it last week. Our Jewish community lives in fear of anti-Semitism. Why aren't media asking her what she meant? So what I'm going to say to you and to the media in New Zealand is, why aren't media asking David Seymour what he meant when he said this controversial slogan? What should be happening now to address this by David Seymour? Like, I'm happy to accept maybe he's a useful idiot. Maybe there was a camera and they just said to him, "Oh, say this. It means welcome to the people," and he said it. But now it's been said, it's recorded, it'll go through that community you're talking about. What needs to happen next, and what does this say to that community? What does David Seymour need to do, if anything?
So, there are two parts to this. One is, you rightly pointed out to the chanting of the slogan. We also need to look at where that slogan is being chanted. It is being chanted in Eden Park at an event that is marking the celebration of the Ayodhya temple, which is a marker of the destruction of the Babri Masjid. So as a social scientist, I really can't get into intent. I don't understand what leads a politician into chanting a particular slogan that, say, is attached to very specifically a form of majoritarian populism that is deployed toward violence that is experienced by Muslims. But there are 2 points that I want to articulate here. Is that the Indian community in Aotearoa is very diverse. It is not just the Hindu community. There are Sikhs, there are Muslims, there are Dalit community members. So the question worth us asking is, what is the message then to Muslim community members in Aotearoa, Muslim Indian community members in Aotearoa, particularly in the backdrop of the Christchurch extremist occurrences, and particularly in the backdrop of activists such as Anjum Rahman, who have been pointed out that Hindutva is of concern in Aotearoa and it is not being given enough attention by crown structures. And by media and Pat here, I want us to be reminded that this was the same kind of warning signal that was being given by Muslim activists building up to Christchurch. So the question there is, what is the message that is being received by Muslims in Aotearoa? And we need to listen to those Muslim voices, particularly the voices of Muslim Indians who are terrorized by both the Ram Janmabhoomi event, the celebration of the Ayodhya temple, and the chanting of the slogan. Coming back to your question about media and media interrogation, there also seems to be a pattern here that needs to be critically interrogated. We need to ask questions such as, are there particular biases in the ways in which the media ask questions? For instance, are there built-in Islamophobic registers in how media ask questions, the kinds of media frames that are circulated, what is erased, what is obfuscated, and what is foregrounded? This process of backgrounding and foregrounding needs to be interrogated. So a chanting of a slogan such as Jai Shri Ram is actually connected to violence. Even after the unveiling of the temple, just yesterday, we see social media rife with incidences where Hindutva mobs are targeting Muslim shops and Muslim neighborhoods, chanting Jai Shri Ram as a do-it. So I just posted something on my X account that shows that there are these Hindutva mobs that are throwing stones at Muslim shops in Muslim neighborhood in Mumbai while chanting that slogan. So there is real violence that is going on currently. So it is really callous in that sense to amplify that slogan and for that not to be interrogated, particularly in Aotearoa. And this is significant given the context of Christchurch and the Royal Commission hearings on the attacks on the masjids.
So whilst you may not want to get into the deep weeds of this, it sounds to me like David Seymour, even if he has unwittingly supported this chant, should probably come out and retract and apologise. And as I've said twice now, he's been used as a useful idiot, needs to basically say, I didn't know what it meant, I didn't know the connotations, much like he was calling on Chloe Swarbrick to do for From the River to the Sea. If he is a man of honour and not a hypocrite, he now needs to do the same thing that he expects of other people to do when a slogan that is used has different meanings to different people. And as you say, because of the incidents in Christchurch as well, specifically here in New Zealand, what this may mean to Indian Muslims here, he needs to do something, at least explain that he was unaware of what it meant and apologise. That would be my position, at least anyway.
That makes sense. I also think that for the media, I will keep coming back to that. There is a critical component here in terms of looking at the funding of Hindutva, how its relationship is with the ACT party or with particular right-wing parties and those kinds of linkages. Because what I've heard from activists are there Hindutva-linked businesses or influential donors that are also linked with these political parties, which would then shape the kind of narrative making. That's one. The other point I want to also bring up is what I see, again, as a scientist who studies this phenomena, the convergence between the majoritarian populism of Hindutva and the majoritarian populism that catalyzes ACT and how ACT is organizing right now around the attacking of Teteritti. and the messages around Maori. So one of the things I've seen on digital platforms in response to Mr. Seymour's posting this on his Facebook account, this event is particular posters that seem Hindutva posters going in and repeating the ACT messages, like this is about equality for all. Great that these changes are happening in Aotearoa. And I think we really need to look here in Aotearoa at the intersections of the anti-Maori sentiments that we are seeing. There has been quite a bit of good research on the role of networks like the Atlas Network in promoting that kind of anti-Maori sentiment, and the relationship of that with the majoritarian populism of Hindutva. It seems like an archetypal feature of right-wing populist parties that are appealing to a far-right base.
I think that's very interesting, the point you made in that latest few comments about following the money to see the donors to ACT, who they were and if they're associated with this group or this belief system. Professor Mohan Dutta, thank you so much for joining us today. We really have appreciated chatting with you and bringing some more light to this. Hopefully we will get some answers from Mr. Seymour. Hopefully, at the very least, he'll be able to acknowledge that maybe for some people this wasn't the smartest or the best thing to say, and he can withdraw and apologise. But I guess, as they say, we shall throw this to the gods and see what comes from it, sir.
Kia ora. Thank you, Pat.
Alrighty. There you go, Chewy. I've seen that 2 or 3 times today because I edited it. You can jump at it, mate. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a huge issue. Like, obviously there's the issue of what's going on in India and the fact that for such a populous country, for a country that is nuclear armed, shares a border with a Muslim majority country next door. I have been reading stories about what's going on there with Modi's government and this Hindu nationalist movement for a couple of years. And it just keeps building and building, and there's not a lot of chat about it, not a lot of chat at all. And now we have a link here with New Zealand, and it is growing. And we keep on talking about whether Seymour's being a useless idiot. Maybe he was just like, I'll do a piece to camera. You just tell me what to say.
Just to pick something up. Useful. I mean, useless idiot, I think is still accurate, but we say useful idiot. Useless works for me, but I think it's 1984, isn't it? It's 1984, useful idiot.
Yeah.
Useless works. I'm just saying.
I mean, he has a responsibility. Like if you were in his position and somebody says, "Oh, just say this phrase to camera," would you not go, "Yeah, sure"? What does it mean though? Let me just do a quick Google on that one.
But you do, yeah. Even that, it doesn't. It's a prayer. I talked about it last night. It means Lord something something. It's not even the words translated into English don't necessarily mean anything. But as the professor was saying, it's all about context. Like I was saying in the clip that's on YouTube. I'm sorry, that's on Twitter that I haven't played. You know, the US, the context of that. We don't need to be told that these guys are right-wing Trump supporters because that chant has been co-opted by them. So we have the context. So even the words by themselves from the translation of that, they don't look neither here nor there. So he'd have to then go one step further and know the context. Because I agree with you. I'm thinking like, you know, if you know, because we're big celebrities now, Chewy, you know, we've got like 10 people watching us now. If someone stood beside us and wanted to take a photo and they were wearing a t-shirt with some slogan on it and we didn't know what it was, would you go, hey, can you just explain this to me in its entirety before I stand beside you because I don't know what it means? You wouldn't. So that's why I'm saying I'm prepared to give him the grace and say he was a useful idiot, but that doesn't mean now he just goes, no, whatever. There is a step beyond that going, I didn't know. To those Muslim Indians in New Zealand, I'm really sorry if it offended you. And I need to listen more.